happy to see you guys. We have had a really great week. So I'm your host, Ashley Dual. If you're new with us, CEO of Dual Dev, and my co-host,
Natasha Velez, CEO of MBS Strategic Solutions.
Today's episode, it's Q4, and I know we always kind of talk more strategy. And this episode is going to be precisely that. And what's cool about this is we're actually seeing it in action right now.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about 5 different ways that you can get in front of a solicitation in government contracting, particularly federal, not to say that it doesn't work at the state level. You can apply the same things at the state level in most cases, I think. We'll talk about which ones you can and which ones you can't. All right. So now Q4, a little bit about what's kind of been going on here today. It's no secret that what you do in quarters 1, 2, and 3 set you up for success. So everyone in the audience, even if you haven't started this yet, you're not necessarily behind, right? We all have to start somewhere.
Yep.
So you may not be able to take advantage of these efforts right now today, but if you start doing them today, by this time next year, you will be singing a far different tune.
Yeah, you're smiling like us.
Yes, absolutely. Must congratulate Natasha. Special shout out. She signed a contract today. Kudos to you, my dear. Thing on the list, and something that if you have been watching us, you are no stranger to, is forecasts, right? So agencies put out their forecasts right around. So when Q1 comes around, agencies, you're going to start seeing their budgets get put out, right? They're going to figure out, this is what we're planning tentatively on buying this year. And they're going to post that publicly. Now, I find that forecasts are kind of hit or miss. Some agencies are much better than others.
Yeah. Some are completely outdated, and you'll notice that. Some are religious about it. Like yearly, they come out with an updated forecast or quarterly.
HHS updates theirs in real time, in fact, I'm pretty sure. Yeah. They have a whole system for a forecast. And you'll notice once you get in here, every agency does business a little bit differently. Mm-hmm. But where you can find the forecasts are going to be here at acquisition.gov. And acquisition.gov has your major departments. Got USAID, Ag, Commerce, Defense, Education. But you'll notice, and I'm going to click on Defense's procurement forecast. Oh, I'm going to show you this.
You should know by now who your agency is that you're targeting.
Right. When you open up DoD's forecast, you'll see all of the sub-agencies under DoD, and each of them are going to report differently. So ideally, you already know which of these buy what you sell, so that way you're not wasting too much time. But let's say you're new and you have no idea. It's a good idea to kind of review them. That way you're looking ahead. Maybe you're still in the planning phase. You're looking ahead to see what they're planning on buying. That's something that you might want to take into consideration if you haven't kind of nailed down your niche yet.
Yeah, and I have to be very honest. Like there's a lot of like back and forth in regards to this. A lot of people are like, I don't look at the forecast. I'm all about the solicitation. If I'm a small business, what is the benefit of that, right? You know, a lot of people believe that capture process where you're trying to influence the solicitation in your favor is specifically for large businesses, but that's not the case. Remember, there is a percentage that is mindful to be towards small businesses. So be conscientious of that and targeting your agencies. I always say the investment in the long run, it's beneficial, right? Like you're talking about, I want millions of dollars. I want a big contract. That is the difference between your large contracts, your long-term stable income contracts, right? 95% of the people I speak with say the same thing. I want to quit my job. I want stable income so I don't have to worry. I want generational wealth. I want to build, right? Awesome. Great. How that happens is the long term, not that quick fix where it's like, I bid on this and I sold them a MacBook and it was the lowest person. And okay, cool. You made like 3,000. Is it going to pay your rent next year? Probably not. You want a long-term strategy. Your long-term strategy is this.
What you find on the forecast are bigger contracts. You're not going to see simplified acquisitions appearing on the forecast. So you may not be in position to win it today, but if they bought it, 70% of the time it's something they've already bought. Go pull a solicitation for that item. Start going through the requirements and checking boxes, right? Mm-hmm. You don't necessarily have to have the insurance policy before you win the award, but you can start now in pricing those insurance policies, having an idea of what your costs are going to be, how much money you might make as an ROI.
It is the initial investment. So researching it, and I think the whole getting ahead of the solicitation really compounds to like a good 5 components. And we call this the capture process. That's essentially that is you doing market and targeting your agency, right? Knowing who those people are.
Tailoring that capability statement, making sure that you're scheduling capability briefings, attending their events, knowing the PM, the CO, the COR. Yes, all of that. Collecting the intel. Collecting the intel that you need to shape your proposal in a manner that's going to stand out above your competitors.
And your RFIs. Folks, please reply to them. I know people say don't do it. RFIs. It hurts you none to reply.
It's just time.
I could be watching Netflix, or I could apply on this RFI. I could write this 2-pager about my business and why I think I am the person for the job. I have had many contracting officers call just based off the RFI because nobody else went on it and was like, can you really perform the work you just said? And I'm like, sure. All of a sudden I have a meeting. We're talking about my business, how I can help them. I'm giving them an idea of what the budget's going to look like. It takes a little longer, but down the road, it builds a relationship and they know to come to me once they've got the funding, they're ready to do the contract, which has happened many times.
Case in point, literally happened today?
Yeah.
Something else that happened today, which proves your point. A client, longtime client of mine, had responded to a sources sought notice about 4 or 5 months ago now, and the solicitation was issued. The only thing she has to do is submit price and give an oral presentation. And looking at it, it looks like it was pretty much written for her. So
because she responded, because she made them aware of what you can do.
She did. She responded. She blew their socks off. She followed up 3 times at least after the sources sought notice. So when that solicitation dropped, the government said, hey, you had inquired a few times about this. Here it is. How convenient is that, right?
Yeah.
So we'll find out what the outcome is, but that's a great example. They didn't have the funding then, but they do now. So it's coming back around. That 1 hour of her time might be a huge payoff.
Quite literally, because again, when you blind bid, your percentage of win rate is down to like 20%, right? Because you have no relationship with the customer. They don't know you. You also don't know if they've already built a relationship with someone else that they favor more than you. So you could pay and build this whole proposal and submit it, and it would mean nothing. You could have the lowest price. I've had plenty of people lose and have the lowest price by millions of dollars. But because the contracting officer felt that someone else had better value and could do the work better and had quality and built that relationship in the report, and the risk was minimal to the government, even with a higher price, they still won. So it's worth building that relationship. And it's not always just about the price. They don't always want the cheapest. Sometimes they do want quality.
And to clarify, we're talking services primarily. This is very common in professional services. It won't necessarily apply to most of the product suppliers.
Unless it's missiles. They better want expensive missiles.
Unless you have a product and something special about it. The same process of increasing awareness of your product is going to be the same process that service companies follow when they're capturing, right? So just to kind of give a look. All right. Another one is going to be attending these agency events. So I use agency events very strategically. I use them for networking. I use them to keep my ear to the ground on what's coming up. I use them to ask questions about upcoming acquisitions. I use them to introduce my company. I mean, if you're going to go there for an hour, even if you're not interested, in the topic, it's a great opportunity to ask questions when you have the decision makers sitting right in front of you. And a lot of times when vendors are asking questions about upcoming opportunities in these events, the government will say, here's my email that I dropped in the chat. Shoot me an email after this and we'll talk. Because it's not a solicitation yet, so they can talk to you. Like if there's anything that should smack you in the face, it should be that. During the competition phase, they can't give any information to you that they don't give to your competitor. But when you're on that phone call, it's only you and that other person, right? So use that opportunity to your advantage. What's another one? I have 2 more on my list that we haven't even touched on yet.
Coming up with a strategy. So this is a little internal and a little external. It's your capture plan. And a lot of people kind of mix BD capture. It's semi the same and not so much. So capture is more like sitting here and saying, why me? Why am I the best one for the job? It's saying, what is my value proposition? What makes me different from my competition? And that creates, yes, what's your win theme? What's your differentiator? And all these things obviously not only have to be like pushed in your strategy when you're doing your proposal planning, but also when you're looking at proposals and you're looking at forecasts and when you're looking at what you're knowing your client, knowing what your customer wants or what that agency would prefer, that also kind of helps you understand, like, it's okay to have weaknesses and say, all right, well, these are my strengths. These are what make me great, but maybe I have a gap here. Maybe I'm not so good at quality management. Maybe that's like, maybe I should team with someone. So that's when you start planning. That's called your capture. You're like, okay, well, I'm really strong here, but I'm kind of like weak here. Who can I partner with that can leverage me? And then all of a sudden I'm team NVS because I have, all these strong capabilities. I'll use us as an example. I am not good at certifications. I'm not the best at business mentoring. I have ADHD, so Lord knows I don't pay attention very long. I like proposals. But Ashley is amazing at business development and capture management. So we have 2 really great strengths. And we have our weaknesses. But together, we're the whole solution. And that's what you're looking at when you're looking at a proposal. You're also thinking to yourself, who can I partner with that's going to make me stronger and leverage my capabilities? You want to constantly have in the back of your mind, I think Sarah said it best, why us?
I will say someone who talks about this to a level that impresses me even today is Josh Frank. When he talks about your one voice, right? Your brand having that one voice. It should be heard in your marketing materials, on your website, in your proposals. It should just ooze from your being, right? Your win theme. So keep that in mind. It's not something that, like I'm 5 years in and I'm still fumbling around with a win theme here and there. So it's not something that is always going to be apparent. Now, if you're an SME, you might already know what your win theme is. If you're a subject matter expert, you have a certain experience, like you can use that, as an egg in your basket to market your company. But I digress. Part of what that capture strategy is, though, is actually what my next bullet point is going to be. It all starts with your market research. And I will die on this hill, guys. I will die on this hill. Roughly 70% of what you see in that data is stuff they buy over and over and over and over again. What better way to predict what's going to happen with the US government spending than to look at what's already happened? Barring the COVID spending, we have the infrastructure bill now. So there are a couple variances, but pretty much it's the same stuff.
Yeah.
So if you see that the USDA has bought this widget, every single year for the past 20 years, chances are they're going to buy that widget again next year. And you can see that pattern in the data if you're looking. The last one I had may not be one that's kind of crossed anybody's mind. And I'm sure there will probably be a post about it and how useless it is tomorrow from somebody who's not using it effectively, right? Things, man. Debriefings, great way to get ahead of a solicitation. Win or lose, I ask for the debriefing. I want to know what I'm doing right with that agency, how I was able to stand apart from my competitors in their mind from their perspective. And I certainly want to know why I lost if I didn't. But most companies, if they're taking advantage of the debriefing, that's the only question they ask. Me, I'm like, what else is coming up that's in our swim lane? Is there anything maybe under the simplified acquisition threshold that maybe didn't appear in the forecast? I mean, I'm sure you have some good debriefing advice there.
I do. I like to ask about everything I did right and everything I did wrong. They will give you a whole detail, where you're strong and where you're not. Lessons learned is something that I also like to do after my debriefing internally with my team. So I want to go over where we were, evaluated in our proposal, where it was strong, where it was weak. Was it our pricing? Was it our technical approach? Was it our management approach? Where can we fix? Because I don't want to keep doing the same thing over and over if it's not working, right? Along with that, I also go and try to study like who is the person that won, who's the contractor that won, how did they beat me? I go and I research them. I research my competition because now I know they exist, right? Now I'm like, okay, even more so because every time I bid on something, 9 times out of 10, you're probably bidding on the same thing I am. Got the same NICS code, you're on the same, hemisphere as I am. So I want to know about you. So I research them and I research how they won, if they have differentiators or benefits that are different from mine, and how can I adjust my company. You should always know your win thing, but you should also be willing to always update and be agile and be willing to change and innovate, because everything changes over time. And you have competition that's always researching you and trying to outcompete you and be like, okay, well, they got this widget, but our widget does this and could still be the same price, right? There's my win thing. I gave you better solution. I gave you a better widget for the same price. They're probably going to go after that. And all of a sudden, you don't win your recompete, right? So never get caught slipping. Don't sleep on it.
That's for sure. That's for sure. And the debriefing, let's say you are blind bidding, right? Let's say you've never talked to the US Coast Guard and there's a solicitation that you're feeling good about and you submit an offer. Look, we're not saying don't bid on what's out there. We're just saying to get better at what you're doing and increase your win rate. If you are especially in services, these are ways that you can get ahead because you're not going to win them all. So the next one you lose, get that debriefing. And I will clarify too, under certain circumstances, it's not required of the contracting officer to give you a debriefing. So let's say it's something $25,000. The key to getting the debriefing, if they don't have to give it to you, is to use the word informal. Showing a willingness to improve is appreciated, right? And they're going to remember you. So if it's a small contract and they're not required by the FAR to give you a debriefing, approach it by asking for an informal. And usually you can email, even if it's just a couple of sentences, it opens up the door for then a reply. So it might not always be a phone call or a meeting.
Like sometimes they don't send you like a debrief, but they'll send you, which I've noticed they do this a lot. Like they'll send you like a list of all, and I don't know if it's always, I don't think it's always federal. I think it's more state and local though. When you do that, they'll send out like all the competition that, all the companies that applied, and submitted a proposal, and sometimes they'll even put in what pricing they submitted. I don't
seen that.
always see that the lowest pricing wins, and it's not necessarily certain materials too. And it might just be due to one, maybe a technical issue or something, but you'll see like all the people that applied and won on and submitted a proposal, and you'll see the amount. And usually that gives you kind of like an awareness, because now you can kind of make your own strategy. You want to know who those companies are. You want to know how they got down to that price, especially if it's materials. That's a really rough one sometimes, because I had someone the other day in my group say, how can someone that sells materials ever get ahead, specifically resellers, because your competition can quite literally outbid you. He's not necessarily wrong. But there is a way to strategically get through that by building a relationship with your competition. If you can't beat them, join them, I guess.
Yeah. Beauty Brand calls it competimates, and I love that expression because it's kind of perfect for what happens in the government space. I had the conversation today, spent several hours with a client, a veteran client who wants to leverage their STVOSB better.
Yep.
So we're having the conversation about, here's our strategies. We've got this direct bid, we've got this subcontracting, and that came up, and we walked through what that looks like. Yep. And it's so rewarding to me, and it's probably why I still am in this industry. When you see that light bulb go off, and you're like,
yeah,
oh, I got it, right? Because we talked about, hey, do you know another veteran-owned company that does what you do? No. I said, well, that's going to be the next friend that we make. Because if I'm a veteran-owned company and my friend's a veteran-owned company over here, and there's a source of SOT notice that isn't set aside yet, hey, buddy, please submit a response to this source of SOT. Mm-hmm. You guys might end up partnering on it. Maybe you won't. It doesn't really matter. The government now has enough justification to set that aside for veterans. Yep. Now you've effectively eliminated, or at least drastically reduced, your competition. The big guys can't bid, the women can't bid, etc. So I know that folks say sources sought and RFIs are a waste of time. That just tells me that you're not using it right. That's all that tells me.
And I really do. All right, I will die on this hill. Being a business owner is not easy. Government contracting is not easy. I don't care how many YouTube videos. The School of YouTube University is full. Sometimes it ain't that easy all the time.
Not all the time.
Not all the time, right? So it is not easy being a business owner. And even more so trying to do business in the government. But you will never get anywhere with that kind of mentality. You have to be the most hopeful, optimistic, forward-thinking person in your business and have lots of patience. Ashley does every day. You're going to have your pitfalls.
I love subcontracting, man. That's why I love subcontracting. Let her write the proposals.
You find your thing, but you have to go out with positivity. So you can't go with it like it never works. Well, that can be said about anything. What do you know about everything? So you have to give it a shot. You have to give chances. I have done I had this component in my life where it was just like, you miss 100% of the chances you don't take.
That's right. That's right.
Take that chance on that RFI. You don't know what's behind the scenes. You don't know what that contracting officer is looking for. And if you're the person that comes with the solution that they have been trying to find, you don't know. Just do it.
No, there are limitations, right? If I'm responding to an RFI, keep in mind, guys, that for sources, SOTs, and RFIs, there's nothing in the FAR that says that you have to give them everything they ask for. There's nothing in the FAR that says that you can't give them more than what they ask for. There's nothing in the FAR that says that you can't even be a little bit late on that submission, right? So you've got a whole lot of leniency in this phase of the procurement cycle. Right.
So keep it like a week, right? Like a week.
Yeah, right. I wouldn't do it any longer than a week.
Yeah,
I wouldn't go further than that. But here's the thing is, Even if the due date's passed, if it's a few days, a week, I'm still going to respond. And 9 times out of 10, I get an acknowledgement of response because,
Yeah.
again, it's market research. If I'm not putting my hat in the ring, I'm certainly not going to get it. And I love Q4 because Q4, we see our efforts pay off in real time for
Cool.
Q1, 2, and 3 in the sources sought realm. So you submit 10 over the course of the year, one's bound to come through for you.
Oh,
When the funding comes available. Now, every industry is a little bit different. So does it always work that way? Not always. If you're in construction, for example, and your contracts are large MATOCs, source SOT's probably going to be less effective.
yeah.
But if you're a service company, if you've got something special about what you're doing or a different way that you're doing it, if you've got a cool product or a new idea, like these are all relevant to that phase of the procurement cycle.
Yes.
Sometimes they do them just to see if there's a small business that can do it. They know they can buy it from the large company, but they're just trying to see, hey, last year there wasn't a small, maybe this year there is. If you
They
don't
need
let them know you're there,
sides.
they're not going to buy from you. I can't say that for sure.
Yep. Well said. They don't know you exist until you
They
tell them.
Right. So have a robust DSBS profile so that you can passively be included in that market research. And you see a source of sought that's in your swim lane that gives you an opportunity to demonstrate your knowledge, your experience, your product, your widget, your service, your new cool software. Do it.
Yeah.
Don't just, assume someone else is going to respond, and they probably will, and you probably won't get that contract when it becomes one. So that's just my soapbox.
If
We
you
will
have any
see you
questions,
same time next week.
see you guys. Keep bidding.